In relationship to women, from scriptures, if I asked you, are you a Mary or a Martha, would you know what I'm talking about? You will at the end of this message. Just remember that. Are you a Mary or a Martha? It's funny, you usually think of this in terms of women when you ask that, obviously, if it was Mary or Martha. If it were a guy, I thought, well, what would the corresponding thing for a guy would be is, well, are you Mo, Larry, or Curly? But anyways, from Luke 10, as Jesus and his disciples were on their way, he came to a village where a woman named Martha opened her home to him. Martha had a sister called Mary, who sat at the Lord's feet listening to him. Got the picture? Yeah. Martha and Mary. But Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made. I'm going to stop right here and ask you a question. And this really pertains to women because most of the guys don't care about this. Is if you were having people come over to your house, what are you going to do? If you're going to host Thanksgiving dinner, Christmas dinner, or what if you had some, I don't know what important dignitary who would be you consider important to come over to your house, and they were coming over to your house, what would you do before that person got there?
Clean the house.
Clean house. Clean house. If you're going to have Thanksgiving dinner, you better be cooking Thanksgiving dinner, right? Or they won't come next year. So just keep this in mind. Keep this in mind between Martha and Mary. Because Martha was distracted by all the preparations that had to be made because Jesus was coming to her house. How important is that? I was going to ask you what we'd do if Jesus came in, but he'd walk right through the wall. You wouldn't even have to open the door, right? But Jesus is coming over to her house. Mary, now Jesus is already there, by the way, because Mary is sitting at his feet listening to what Jesus is saying. So Martha comes to Jesus, and I could see this with a little attitude, Lord, don't you care that my sister has left me to do all the work by myself? Tell her to help me. Right? Who votes for Martha? Oh, actually, I do too. Jesus answered, Martha, Martha. We used to do Marcia, Marcia in our house, but it's Martha, Martha. You are worried and upset about many things, but only one thing is needed. Mary has chosen what is better, and it will not be taken away from her. So you got it? You got the difference between a Martha and a Mary? You know, an obvious message here is to say, don't get so distracted with the activities of this world to put God off to the side. That's an obvious one. We don't. It goes without saying, so then you immediately say it. That's an obvious message there. But let me tell you what the Jewish customs were at that time. At that time, Jewish customs require that hospitality be shown when someone comes into your house. That includes, generally, feeding them. In fact, the Jewish customs were so specific to hospitality and foreigners because they were foreigners in the land of Egypt for, I think it's 400 years, something like that. So they know what it's like to be a foreigner. So if you are a foreigner and are sitting in a city square, somebody in that town has the obligation to offer you dinner, come over to the house. How's that?
That's amazing.
If you are harvesting wheat and grain from a field, I think it's called gleaning. The Jewish laws are you don't take all the grain. You leave some of that grain for widows to be able to come and get food, or foreigners. So what Martha was doing, preparing this meal, getting the house ready, she was doing exactly what she was supposed to be doing. Martha was doing exactly what the law required her to do. Mary, on the other hand, anybody here remember the movie Yentl?
Yes.
With Barbara Streisand? Wasn't that a great movie? The whole premise of that movie was Jewish women were not allowed or encouraged to be studying the Bible. Now, Yentl was in the Middle Ages. This was way before the Middle Ages. Trust me, Mary was way out of place, according to the Jewish customs, to be sitting at Jesus' feet listening to that message. Martha was doing what was required of her. But as we've said many times in here before, Jesus changed everything. This story, this story of Mary and Martha came shortly after the parable of the Good Samaritan, where Jesus turned everything around on who's your neighbor. The Samaritans, who the Jews hated, had no respect for them. Now Jesus is saying, well, they're your neighbor. You need to love them. So Jesus turns everything around. And that was the point he was making to Martha. It wasn't, don't clean the house. It's really pay attention to all of the important things in life. Now, I'm going to read another verse about Martha. And this was right after Lazarus has died. It wasn't just right after, it was 4 days after Lazarus has died. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, Martha went out to meet him, but Mary stayed home. I don't remember this, to be honest with you. Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. Is that faith?
Yeah.
Is Martha showing faith? Yes. But I know, now listen to this. This is from Martha, the one that you think she's working too hard or not understanding what priorities might be. I know that even now, 4 days after her brother Lazarus has died, even now God will give you whatever you ask. When you talk about prayer, to me that's a prayer. That's a prayer. Think God answers prayers?
Yes.
Oh, you read this verse, huh? And Jesus, ultimate teacher, always making a point. Jesus said, oh, your brother will rise again. And Martha answered, well, I know he will rise again in the resurrection at the last day. And then Jesus said to her, listen to this verse and realize he said this to Martha. The verse I'm going to read, I always thought Jesus read this, or not read it, said it to hundreds of people. Hundreds of people. He said to Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. The one who believes in me will live, even though they die. And whoever lives by believing in me will never die. He said that to Martha. He may have said it to other people, but he said it to only Martha at this point. And then he said, do you believe it? Yes, Lord, she replied. I believe that you are the Messiah, the Son of God, who is to come into this world. Martha, there's not many solid, specific professions of faith that you see in the Bible. This is specific and solid as you will ever see. Martha. Martha got it. She understood that when it's time to cook and clean, you do it as hard as you can. I think of my daughter from a different reason. She has 4 kids. She has 4 kids, and when they wake up in the morning, because we've done this, Carol and I have been out there babysitting for them, and it's chaos. Chaos. And of course, I don't help the situation at all. But when it's breakfast time, especially on a school day, the kids, they don't leave a whole lot of time to get ready. 4 of them come down. 1 of them's a baby. She has to be carried in, but she's as demanding as the rest of them. And it's down, and you know, Luke's got to feed the dog. They got to get dressed for school. Did you do your homework? Did you? Well, they actually did the homework the night before. You got to eat, and you're rushing. I don't think Katie has the opportunity to say, you know what, kids? Let's just pray today. We're not going to give you breakfast. I know what all of them say, including the 1-year-old. Hey! No, there is a time, there are times for hard work and doing what needs to be done at the time. For instance, I've had the privilege of going on 2 missions trips with our church, just local. It's hard work. And it blessed me more than it's blessed the people that we were doing the work for. And I guarantee you, every person there was a Martha. Every person there. So the question is, or the answer is, are you a Mary or a Martha? You need to be both. You need to be both. You need to have the times when you need to be in close relationship with God at His feet, worshiping Him daily, hopefully. And the other times, going out and doing the things that we need to do. Amen? Amen. Amen. Amen.